The secret pattern hidden behind every bad trade. A deep dive into the mind that moves the market. Chapter 1. Welcome to the hidden pattern. Let me ask you something. How many times have you stared at the screen, watched a perfect setup form, and still lost money? You followed your plan, your indicators lined up, the candles moved exactly how you expected. And yet, you clicked too early, exited too soon, or froze completely. It wasn't the chart that betrayed you. It was something deeper, something invisible, something emotional, something inside. That's the hidden pattern we're here to uncover. Welcome to the secret pattern hidden behind every bad trade. You didn't land here by accident. You're here because somewhere deep down, you know that success in trading isn't about more data or new strategies or the next indicator that promises 99% accuracy. You've tried those, and still, your results feel inconsistent. Why? Because the real edge isn't technical, it's psychological. The real market you're trading every day isn't on your screen. It's the one inside your mind. This audiobook isn't about turning you into a robot who never feels fear or greed. It's about teaching you to understand them. Because every bad trade, every emotional decision, every painful loss isn't random. It's part of a repeating emotional pattern, a blueprint that hides beneath your actions. And until you see that pattern, you'll keep reliving it. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, this time will be different? You create new rules, you promise to stay patient, you even say you'll stop revenge trading. But when the heat of the market hits, logic fades. Impulse takes over. That's not because you're weak, it's because your emotions are running the show. Fear makes you hesitate. Greed makes you chase. Ego makes you fight the market. And together, they form the invisible rhythm behind every bad trade. If you look close enough, you'll see it. The same emotional cycle repeating in new disguises. You lose, you react, you try to fix it, you lose again. It's not bad luck, it's a loop. And that loop is powered by something few traders ever master: themselves. But here's the truth most people never hear. Every great trader you admire went through this same battle. Jesse Livermore, Paul Tudor Jones, Ray Dalio. They all faced emotional chaos long before they found emotional control. Livermore once said, "It was never my thinking that made the big money for me. It was always my sitting." But what most traders forget is that sitting still isn't a technical skill. It's an emotional one. He didn't just sit through trades. He sat through himself, through the fear, the doubt, the urge to act when patience was needed most. That's the true art of trading, mastering the space between thought and action. So here's what we're going to do together in this audiobook. We're going to slow everything down, strip away the noise, and look beneath the surface. You'll learn how emotions like fear, greed, and impatience shape your perception, how they twist logic, distort signals, and push you into trades you swore you wouldn't take. You'll learn to recognize the difference between intuition and impulse, between a calm conviction and a desperate hope. And by the end of this journey, you won't just trade better, you'll think better, you'll feel better, you'll act with clarity instead of chaos. I want you to think of this book as a mirror, because the charts won't show you the truth until you can face it in yourself. Every candle, every loss, every win, they all reflect your inner state. If your mind is chaotic, your trades will be too. If your emotions are steady, your decisions will follow. The market doesn't reward intelligence. It rewards emotional maturity. Let's make something clear. There's nothing wrong with you for feeling fear or greed. Those emotions are part of being human. But when you start to understand them, when you stop fighting them and start learning from them, they transform from enemies into teachers. Fear shows you where you lack trust. Greed shows you where you feel scarcity. Ego shows you where you've stopped listening. Every emotion has a message, and every bad trade is a messenger. Most traders spend years chasing indicators and setups, when the real indicator they should be studying is their own behavior. The flicker of anxiety before entering a trade, the rush of excitement after a small win, the panic that comes when price moves against them. Those emotions are the chart you should be reading. Because once you understand their pattern, you can predict your own reactions and finally control them. There's a saying among veteran traders: you don't trade the market, you trade your beliefs about the market. That's the foundation of this entire audiobook. Your beliefs create your emotions create your actions create your results. Change the belief, you change the pattern. So what's the promise of this journey? By the time you finish this audiobook, you won't just have more knowledge, you'll have awareness. You'll begin to see your own hidden triggers. You'll catch yourself before impulsive clicks. You'll understand why you panic, why you chase, why you freeze, and you'll start to rise above it. That's what separates a trader who survives from one that thrives. And I'll warn you now, this won't always be comfortable, because true growth never is. You'll have to face your own habits, your own fears, your own excuses. But that's where transformation begins, right where discomfort meets awareness. So as you take a deep breath and listen to these words, I want you to remember something. You are not your losses. You are not your mistakes. You are the awareness behind them, and that awareness can be trained. The hidden pattern isn't your enemy, it's your map. And once you learn to read it, you'll stop being trapped by emotion and start moving with intention. In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into what's really happening inside your mind every time you trade. Because before you can master the market, you must first understand the invisible war happening within you, between patience and impulse, clarity and chaos, strategy and emotion. We'll explore the story of a trader who had everything right, except control over himself. And through his story, you'll see what's truly standing between you and consistency. Welcome to the beginning of mastery. Let's step into the next chapter, the invisible war inside every trader.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever taken a trade you knew you shouldn't take, but you did it anyway? You told yourself, it's just a small position. You even promised, this time will be different. But deep down, you knew you weren't following your plan. And when it went south, you didn't just lose money. You lost trust in yourself. That moment right there, that's the invisible war inside every trader. It's not you versus the market. It's you versus you. Patience versus impulse. Logic versus emotion. Calm versus chaos. Every click, every trade, every loss, they all come from whichever side of that war wins in the moment. You think you're fighting charts and volatility, but what you're really fighting is the part of yourself that refuses to wait. Here's the truth most traders never realize. Trading isn't just a financial pursuit, it's an emotional battlefield. And the deeper you go, the more you realize every candle is a reflection of your state of mind. When you're calm, you see opportunity. When you're anxious, you see threats. When you're desperate, you see anything that moves as the setup. The chart never changes. You do. Let me tell you a story. There was a trader named Ryan. Sharp guy. Had a decade of experience, top-tier analysis, and more screen time than most. He'd built strategies that worked. He could spot breakouts, reversals, you name it. But somehow, his account kept bleeding. Every month started strong and ended in frustration. He'd give back profits, blow setups, overtrade, and swear to do better next week. Sound familiar? One day, after another red week, he sat in front of his screen at 2 a.m. and realized something terrifying. He wasn't losing to the market, he was losing to himself. It wasn't a system that failed, It was his discipline, his patience, his ability to wait for his plan to play out. He didn't need another strategy. He needed self-control. Ryan began journaling, not his trades, but his emotions. Before every click, he wrote what he felt: impatient, excited, afraid to miss out, bored. And suddenly, a pattern emerged. Every big loss came from one emotion: impulse. It wasn't the setup that was wrong, it was the state of mind he was in when he took it. He realized he wasn't trading the market, he was trading his emotions about the market. And that's what most traders never see. You can learn every technical pattern on earth, but if you don't learn to recognize the emotional patterns within yourself, you'll keep repeating the same mistakes with different charts and different excuses. Because charts don't trigger bad trades. Feelings do. That's the invisible war, the silent clash between your higher mind and your emotional reflexes. Think about your own trades. When you close too early, what emotion drives that? When you chase a breakout, you know it's too late. What emotion whispers in your ear? When you double down on a loser, who are you really fighting? The market or your ego? The market doesn't care about you. It's your mind that's trying to prove something. You're not reacting to the price, you're reacting to what that price means to you. See, trading is psychological warfare disguised as math. Every tick tests your patience. Every pullback challenges your confidence. Every loss questions your worth. But the most successful traders don't avoid that war. They learn to observe it. They become witnesses to their own reactions. They feel the fear, the greed, the urge to act, and they wait anyway. That's emotional mastery. Not being numb, but being aware. You've probably heard the saying, stick to your plan. But no one talks about what happens when your emotions hijack that plan. You tell yourself, I'll only take A-plus setups. Then your patience runs out and suddenly a B- setup looks good enough. You tell yourself, I'll take my stop and move on. Then ego steps in and says, not this time. I'll get it back. Your logical self writes the rules. Your emotional self rewrites them in real time. That's the invisible war. So how do you win it? Not by fighting harder, not by trying to control your emotions, but by understanding them. Every emotion wants to protect you. Fear wants to keep you safe. Greed wants to give you more. Ego wants to preserve your identity. They're not enemies. They're just terrible decision makers. Your job isn't to silence them, it's to listen, then lead. Here's a trick used by top traders. They don't just track market data, they track emotional data. They rate their mental state before and after every trade. They know their triggers, their weak spots, their breaking points. Because self-awareness turns chaos into information. Once you can see what emotion is rising before it controls you, you can act with clarity instead of reaction. That's the difference between a trader who survives and one who thrives. It reminds me of something Paul Tudor Jones once said. The most important rule of trading is to play great defense, not great offense. Defense isn't about tight stops. It's about emotional control. It's the ability to sit on your hands when everything in you wants to act. Every trader eventually learns the same painful truth. You don't blow accounts because of bad setups. You blow them because of bad states of mind. So let me ask you again. Who's really clicking that mouse when you trade? Is it the calm, logical version of you that sees the plan clearly, or the emotional version that just wants relief, excitement, or validation? Until you know the answer, you'll keep fighting battles you can't see. But once you do, you'll realize something powerful. You don't have to win every trade. You just have to win yourself. Every chart is a mirror. It reflects not the market, but your mindset. If you're impatient, you'll see opportunities that aren't there. If you're afraid, you'll miss the ones that are. If you're calm, the market becomes quiet too. The screen doesn't lie. It shows you exactly who you are in this moment. And that awareness, that's where mastery begins. In the next chapter, We'll talk about the emotion that starts it all, the one that hides behind hesitation, overanalysis, and missed opportunities. Fear. We'll explore how fear takes many forms: fear of missing out, fear of being wrong, fear of letting go, and how it quietly rewires your logic every time you trade. We'll even look at the story of Jesse Livermore, a man who conquered markets but couldn't conquer his own mind. Because understanding fear is the first step towards mastering freedom. So take a breath and let's step into Chapter 3. Fear, the silent saboteur.
Let me ask you something. When was the last time you hesitated and watched the market move without you? You saw the setup, you knew it was right, but your finger froze over the mouse. And when the trade finally took off, you whispered to yourself, "I knew it." That's fear, the silent saboteur that hides behind logic, whispers behind hesitation, and quietly robs traders of opportunity every single day. Most traders think fear shows up only during losses, but the truth is, fear is everywhere in trading. It hides behind every overanalyzed chart, every early exit, every missed entry, even in every perfect setup that you somehow didn't take. Fear isn't loud, it's subtle. It dresses itself as caution, patience, or confirmation. But make no mistake, it's still fear. Fear doesn't just make you lose money, it makes you lose time, momentum, confidence. It's the reason you hesitate when the opportunity is right and jump too fast when it's wrong. It's the emotional puppeteer behind every what if. What if it fails? What if I lose again? What if this is another fake out? You don't realize it, but you're not trading the market. You're trading your imagination of what could go wrong. There are 3 forms of fear that quietly rule traders' lives, and if you don't see them, you'll never escape their grip. The first one, the fear of missing out. You know this one well. That sudden rush when price breaks out and your heart screams, "I'm missing it, get in now!" You click not because it's part of your plan, but because you can't stand the idea of being left behind. That's not strategy, that's emotional panic disguised as urgency. And ironically, the fear of missing out often creates the very loss you were afraid of. Then there's the fear of being wrong. This one cuts deep. It's the reason you hesitate to pull the trigger even when your setup is clean. It's why you move your stop loss just a little further, because you don't want to prove your analysis was wrong. You're not protecting your capital, you're protecting your ego. Fear of being wrong doesn't just keep you from acting, it keeps you from learning. Because as long as you're afraid to be wrong, you'll never be honest with yourself about why you lost. And then there's the fear of letting go. The trade's moving in your favor, but you can't close it. You keep holding, hoping, wishing for a little more, because closing the trade means it's over. Fear of letting go isn't about greed, it's about control. It's the belief that if you stay in just a bit longer, you can squeeze perfection out of uncertainty. But the market doesn't reward perfection, it rewards peace. Let me tell you a story about one of the greatest traders in history, Jesse Livermore, a man who made and lost fortunes long before trading became digital. The boy plunger, they called him. He predicted the 1929 crash and became one of the richest men alive. But here's the part most people never talk about. For all his brilliance, Livermore couldn't master one thing: his emotions. He'd build millions, then lose it all, again and again. His problem wasn't analysis, it was fear. Fear of missing the next big move, fear of being left out, fear of sitting still. Livermore once wrote, "The human side of every person is the greatest enemy of the average investor or speculator." And he was right. Because no matter how sharp your strategy is, if fear controls your hand, the market controls your fate. So let's talk about where fear really comes from. It's not from price, it's not from risk, it's not even from losses. Fear is born from uncertainty. Your brain hates the unknown. It would rather be wrong and familiar than right and uncertain. So it tricks you. It creates safety in hesitation. It convinces you that waiting for more confirmation is smart when really it's procrastination in disguise. It tells you that closing early is locking in profits, when really it's fear of losing what you just gained. Every rational justification you make under pressure is usually fear wearing a mask. But here's the paradox. You can't trade successfully without fear, because fear isn't your enemy, it's your early warning system. It tells you when the risk feels too high, when your ego's too loud, when your capital's overexposed. Fear becomes dangerous only when it owns you. The goal isn't to eliminate fear, it's to walk through it without letting it decide for you. That's what separates professionals from amateurs. Amateurs act because they feel fear. Professionals act despite it. Next time you feel fear rise up during a trade, don't fight it, observe it. Say to yourself, "Oh, that's fear. It's trying to protect me." Then ask, does this fear make sense, or is it just old programming? That one question can save you thousands of dollars because awareness interrupts emotion. The moment you name fear, you weaken it because what's seen loses its power. So, how do you train yourself to move through fear? You start by building trust, not in the market, but in yourself. Every time you follow your plan, even when it's uncomfortable, you build emotional muscle. And over time, fear stops being a threat and starts being a signal. When you feel it, you don't flinch, you focus, because you've trained yourself to see fear as the start of clarity, not chaos. Here's a simple truth most people don't want to hear. You'll never outgrow fear. You'll just outgrow its control over you. Every trader feels it. The best simply learn to breathe through it. Because fear doesn't go away when you master trading, it transforms when you master yourself. So let me ask you, what kind of fear runs your trades right now? Fear of missing out? Fear of being wrong? Fear of letting go? Drop your answer in the comments, because awareness begins when you name what's been hiding. In the next chapter, we'll talk about fear's dangerous twin, greed. Because where fear holds you back, greed pushes you over the edge. It's the illusion of control that comes right after fear fades. That moment when a few wins make you feel untouchable, right before the market humbles you. We'll explore how greed isn't really about wanting more money, it's about escaping fear. And we'll uncover why the most dangerous moment in trading is right after you've been right. Get ready for Chapter 4, Greed, the Illusion of Control.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever taken a winning trade, felt unstoppable, and then gave it all back trying to do it again? That's greed. And it doesn't start with desire, it starts with victory. The moment you win, something inside you changes. You stop playing to survive and start playing to prove. You don't want just profit anymore, you want control. That's the illusion. The belief that if you've been right once, you can be right forever. But the market has a way of humbling that illusion. Greed is sneaky. It doesn't walk into your mind yelling, "Take more." It whispers, "You've got this. One more trade. You're in the zone." It feels logical. It feels earned. It feels like confidence, but it's not. It's fear wearing a different mask. Because greed isn't about wanting more money. It's about escaping fear. Fear of missing out, fear of losing momentum, fear that the win was just luck. So you chase the next high to prove the last one was skill. But that chase always ends the same way, in loss, frustration, and confusion. Let me tell you a story. There's a trader named Daniel, mid-30s, works from home. He's not new to trading, been around for a few years. One morning, everything lined up perfectly. He caught a clean move on NASDAQ futures, perfect entry, perfect exit, beautiful profit. His heart was racing, but in a good way. He thought, finally, I've got it figured out. He leaned back, looked at his screen, and said out loud, that was easy. But that's when it started. Because that easy feeling wasn't confidence. It was the seed of greed. Daniel didn't want to stop. He wanted to repeat it. He told himself, the market's hot today, I'll ride it. He opened another trade, lost a little, then tried to make it back, lost a bit more, then said, okay, just one more trade, I'll finish green. You already know how this ends. By the afternoon, his morning win was gone, and so was his peace. That night, staring at the ceiling, Daniel whispered, why can't I stop when I'm ahead? That's the question every trader eventually faces. Why can't I stop when I'm ahead? The answer isn't technical, it's psychological. Because every win gives your brain a dopamine hit, the same chemical rush gamblers feel when they pull a slot lever. Your brain starts craving that rush more than the actual money. You're not trading for profit anymore. You're trading for certainty, for control, for that feeling of being right. But the more you chase control, the more you lose it. Greed is the mind's rebellion against uncertainty. It's the ego saying, I don't just want to win, I want to dominate. But markets don't reward domination. They reward discipline. That's why so many traders blow up right after their biggest win. Because success changes your internal chemistry. You start believing you've transcended risk, that you've cracked the code, and that's when the fall begins. History proves this again and again. Remember the story of Nick Leeson, the trader who took down Barings Bank, one of the oldest banks in England? He started with small, smart wins, built a reputation for brilliance. People called him the Wonder Boy of trading. But after one loss, he doubled down to make it back. Then again, and again, each time believing, I can fix this, just one more trade. Sound familiar? His greed wasn't about money anymore. It was about control. And that illusion destroyed a 233-year-old bank. Every trader who's been in the game long enough knows that greed isn't just dangerous, it's inevitable. You will feel it. You will fight it. And sometimes it'll win. But the goal isn't to erase greed, it's to understand what it really is. Greed is your mind's panic response to success. When you win, your brain says, don't stop. What if this is your moment? It pushes you to ride momentum longer than your plan allows. And that's how good traders turn into gamblers. Here's the harsh truth. Greed is not about wealth. It's about worth. Because deep down, many traders don't believe one win is enough. They think, if I stop now, I'll miss something bigger. So they keep trading to prove they're still in control. But control is a myth. No trader controls the market. The only thing you ever control is your reaction to it. The moment you forget that, greed takes the wheel. You want to know what real mastery looks like? It's not the guy bragging about flipping 5K into 50K. It's the trader who takes a good trade, closes the laptop, and walks away. That's power. That's control. That's the moment you win the inner game. Because in trading, success isn't about what you take, it's about what you can walk away from. Let me ask you this. When you take a winning trade, do you celebrate by trading more or by protecting what you earned? Drop your answer in the comments, because that one question might reveal more about your trading psychology than any indicator ever could. Here's a small exercise for you. Next time you have a green day, end your session early. Not because you're scared, but because you're strong enough to stop. Write this down somewhere you can see it. Discipline feels like loss in the moment, but it's freedom in the long run. Every time you walk away while you're ahead, you're building emotional capital, and that's worth more than any single trade. Jesse Livermore, the same man that we talked about before, once said, "There is nothing new on Wall Street. There can't be, because speculation is as old as the hills." He was right. The emotions that drove traders a century ago are the same ones driving you now. Fear and greed, the twin forces that run every market, every mind, every chart. You'll never escape them, but you can learn to see through them. Because here's the truth. Fear and greed aren't opposites. They're partners in disguise. Fear holds you back. Greed pushes you too far. One traps you in hesitation. The other traps you in overconfidence. And together, they form the cycle every trader knows. The emotional loop that repeats until you see it clearly. That loop is the secret pattern behind every bad trade. And in the next chapter, we'll uncover it in full. We'll explore the loop of self-sabotage, the hidden rhythm of emotion that keeps traders stuck in the same mistakes over and over. And most importantly, how to break free from it. So, before you move on, ask yourself one last question. Do you trade to win, or do you trade to feel in control? Because how you answer that determines whether you'll keep repeating the cycle or finally rise above it.
Chapter 5. The Loop of Self-Sabotage. Let me start with a question. Have you ever promised yourself that this time would be different, only to repeat the same trading mistake again? You tell yourself, "I won't overtrade." And then 5 minutes later, you're already in your third position. You say, "I'll follow my plan." Then one candle fakes you out, and suddenly you're reacting, not executing. It's like you watching yourself from outside your body, knowing what you're doing is wrong, but doing it anyway. That's not lack of knowledge. That's the loop of self-sabotage. Every trader has a moment where they realize the market isn't their enemy. They are. Because the real pattern behind every bad trade isn't in the chart. It's in your reactions. Fear, greed, revenge, overconfidence. They're not random moods. They're steps in a psychological dance that repeats until you finally see it for what it is. And once you see it, everything changes. Let's make this real. Imagine a trader named Ethan. He's smart, disciplined most of the time. He's got a trading plan, risk rules, all the right tools. But he keeps blowing up. Not all at once, just slowly, over weeks. He wins for a few days, starts feeling sharp, then takes one trade outside his plan. He tells himself it's just a small risk. He loses, then tries to win it back. That's when the loop starts spinning. He trades impulsively. He increases size. He gets angry. He stops following his plan. And soon, his screen looks like a battlefield. Later that night, he looks at his journal and writes, "I don't understand why I keep doing this." But he does understand. He just hasn't admitted it yet. Ethan doesn't have a trading problem. He has an emotional pattern. Here's the hard truth. We don't trade the market. We trade our beliefs about it. If you believe the market owes you something, you'll force trades. If you believe you're smarter than it, you'll overtrade. If you believe you're not good enough, you'll hesitate, exit too early, or chase losses. Every behavior you repeat isn't random. It's emotional programming. And until you become aware of that program, you'll keep living it on loop. Think about it like this. Every losing streak, every rule break, every meltdown, they all start with one emotion that you don't want to feel. Maybe it's the fear of being wrong. Maybe it's the shame of missing out. Maybe it's the frustration of not being in control. So instead of sitting with that emotion, you trade to escape it. And the moment you do, the loop resets. You trade to avoid pain, you create more pain. Then you trade again to escape the new pain. And the cycle keeps spinning until awareness stops it. You might be wondering, so how do I stop it? The first step is recognition. You can't change what you don't see. You have to start catching yourself in the loop. When you feel the urge to overtrade, don't fight it, observe it. When you want to chase a loss, ask yourself, what am I trying not to feel right now? It sounds simple, but that question changes everything. Because self-sabotage loses power the moment you shine awareness on it. Let me give you something practical. Think of your trading day like a movie. You're both the main character and the director. When you make a mistake, don't react. Rewind the scene in your mind. What emotion came right before the decision? Was it frustration? Overconfidence? Boredom? That emotion is the real trigger. Not the chart, not the candle, not the setup. The emotion. Once you start mapping those triggers, you'll begin to see the pattern. And that's when you gain power over it. There's a quote from Paul Tudor Jones that says, "The most important rule of trading is to play great defense." He wasn't talking about protecting your account. He was talking about protecting your mind. Because when you're inside the loop, your brain tricks you into thinking you're acting logically. But you're not. You're reacting emotionally to something you haven't processed yet. That's why traders blow accounts not from one bad trade, but from one emotional spiral. You can't break that spiral with more information. You break it with awareness. And awareness begins the moment you realize you've been here before. The same frustration, the same overtrading, the same regret. That's the pattern whispering to you, trying to show you the lesson you keep skipping. Every losing streak has a message. You haven't learned from me yet. The moment you listen, the pattern ends. Let me ask you something deep. When you lose a trade, what's your first instinct? Do you analyze the market, or do you blame yourself? Because if your first instinct is guilt or frustration, that's not analysis. That's your ego reacting to pain. And when ego trades, logic dies. Here's what I want you to try. Next time you lose a trade, don't rush to fix it. Don't touch the chart. Don't open another position. Instead, write this down. What emotion am I feeling right now? Name it. Don't justify it, just name it. Then wait. When you name emotion, you separate from it. You become the observer, not the reactor. And that shift, that tiny moment of awareness, is where mastery begins. Jesse Livermore once said, "The game taught me the game, and it didn't spare the rod while teaching it." He understood what most traders never do, that the market isn't punishing you, it's mirroring you. Every emotional weakness gets exposed until you learn to sit with it without reacting. That's the lesson behind the loop. You're not stuck because you're broken. You're stuck because you keep running from the same emotional lesson. So here's the truth you've been waiting for. The secret pattern behind every bad trade isn't luck, strategy, or timing. It's emotion, repeating itself in different disguises. The setups change, the tickers change, but the feeling, always the same. You can change brokers, indicators, or mentors, but until you change awareness, the pattern will find you again. The good news is, the moment you see the pattern, it loses control over you. You don't have to fight it, you just have to notice it. That's how traders evolve, not by eliminating emotion, but by no longer being controlled by it. You don't stop feeling fear or greed, you just stop obeying them. And that's what separates the amateur from the master. If this chapter hit you, I want to know, what's the emotion that keeps pulling you back into bad trades? Drop it in the comments, because once you name it, you start breaking it. In the next chapter, We're going to build the foundation that keeps you grounded when emotion tries to take over. We'll talk about how world-class traders like Paul Tudor Jones build discipline not through force, but through structure, routine, and reflection. Because the opposite of self-sabotage isn't perfection, it's stability. And that's exactly what's waiting for you in Chapter 6, The Discipline Blueprint.
Let me ask you something. How many times have you told yourself, I'll be more disciplined tomorrow? You wake up with good intentions. You say, I'll follow my plan. No emotional trades today. And by noon, you're already breaking every rule you wrote. You're not alone. Every trader does this. Because discipline isn't built in the moment of action. It's built in the moments before it. And that is the blueprint we're about to build together. See, discipline isn't about restriction. It's not about forcing yourself to behave. It's about creating an environment where doing the right thing becomes natural. Most traders think they can willpower their way to control. But willpower is like a battery. The more you use it, the faster it drains. The pros don't rely on willpower. They rely on structure. Because when your structure is strong, your emotions don't get to vote. Let's talk about one of the best to ever do it, Paul Tudor Jones. He's known as one of the most disciplined traders in history, and it's not because he never feels fear or greed, it's because he expects those emotions, and he builds systems that protect him from himself. Paul once said, don't focus on making money, focus on protecting what you have. And that mindset shift changes everything. He journals every trade. He reviews his emotional state daily. He limits risk ruthlessly. He meditates before the market opens, not to find peace, but to build presence. Because he knows the truth. You can't control the market. You can only control your state when facing it. Let's take that lesson and bring it closer to home. If your trading plan lives only in your head, it's not a plan. It's a wish. Real traders write. They track their setups, their emotions, their triggers, their mistakes, and their recovery. They build feedback loops that tell them where they slip and how to catch it earlier next time. That's discipline in action. Here's a reality check most traders don't want to hear. You don't rise to your level of motivation. You fall to your level of preparation. Discipline isn't about being strong in the moment. It's about designing moments where you don't need strength. That's what Paul Tudor Jones does. That's what every professional does. They build rituals that anchor their mind before emotion hits. Let's break down what that actually looks like. There are 3 pillars to emotional stability in trading: routine, reflection, and rules. First, routine. Your morning ritual sets your emotional temperature. If you start your day rushing, scrolling, or reacting, your brain is already wired for chaos. But if you start your day with intention, journaling, meditation, a short walk, maybe breath work, you create space. You give your mind oxygen. That space becomes the gap between reaction and response. And that gap, that is where profit lives. Second, reflection. This is where journaling comes in. Not just about numbers and setups, but about emotions. Ask yourself after every session, what emotion drove my best trade today? What emotion drove my worst? When did I feel most in control, and when did I feel most reactive? You'll be surprised how fast patterns appear when you're honest. Journaling isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. It's the mirror you use to catch your blind spots. And third, rules. Rules aren't cages, they're shields. They protect you from the emotional chaos that destroys consistency. Set hard limits before the market opens. Your max loss, your trade count, your stop times. Write them down. Say them out loud if you have to. Because when you're in the heat of the moment, emotion will always argue for exceptions. And the moment you negotiate with emotion, you've already lost. So don't leave room for debate. Your rules are the law of your trading universe. Everything else is noise. Let me tell you something personal from a trader I once interviewed. Her name's Melissa. She started trading crypto in 2017. She was sharp, quick, ambitious, but her emotions ran the show. One week she'd double her account, the next she'd blow it. She told me something that stuck with me. I didn't need more information. I needed more structure. So she built it. Every morning, she'd do a 5-minute visualization, not of making money, but of following her plan flawlessly. She set alarms to remind herself to step away after every loss. She kept a printed sheet on her desk that said, "My goal is consistency, not excitement." Within 6 months, her entire mindset changed. Not because she became fearless, but because she finally had a framework to protect herself when fear came. That's what discipline really is. It's not the absence of emotion. It's the ability to stay aligned with your process despite emotion. Every professional athlete knows this. They train for pressure, so that when it hits, their body doesn't panic, it performs. Traders are no different. Your process is your training. Your rules are your muscle memory. Your journal is your coach. You don't build discipline in the good days. You build it in the small, silent decisions when no one's watching, and you choose your plan over your impulse. Let me ask you this. What's the first rule you always break when things go wrong? Write it down. Make that your target for the next week. Don't try to fix everything. Fix one loop at a time. Because self-mastery doesn't come from massive change. It comes from consistent correction. There's something beautiful about traders who live by structure. They don't need the market to be calm because they are. They don't need to control outcomes because they've mastered behavior. They understand what Paul Tudor Jones meant when he said, "The secret to being successful from a trading perspective is to have an indefatigable and undying and unquenchable thirst for information and knowledge." He wasn't talking about charts. He was talking about self-awareness. That's the real discipline blueprint. To know yourself so well that your worst day still looks like control. So here's your challenge. Build your mental architecture. Design your daily routine. Choose your morning ritual. Set your end-of-day reflection questions, and make your rules visible, not in your notebook, but in your environment. Because success isn't built on motivation. It's built on systems that keep you grounded when emotion tries to pull you off course. That's the trader's blueprint. That's emotional engineering. And once you build that foundation, you'll find something rare. A calm that doesn't depend on what the market does. You'll enter trades without fear, exit without regret, and observe volatility without losing yourself in it. That's where we're going next. In the next chapter, we'll dive into that rare state every great trader chases, the calm in the storm. We'll explore how legends like Richard Wyckoff built patience not just in their positions, but in their character. Because calm isn't the absence of chaos, it's the mastery of it.
Let me ask you something. What do you do when the market starts to burn? When every candle looks like chaos, when red floods your screen and your heart starts racing faster than your Wi-Fi? Do you tighten your stop? Do you hit close just to make the pain stop? Or do you freeze, watching your emotions trade for you? Every trader has been there. That storm, that rush, that noise inside your head. But here's the thing. Calm isn't what you find after the storm. It's what you learn to become inside it. The greatest traders don't win because they're fearless. They win because they've learned how to stay still while everyone else is panicking. That's what this chapter is about. Finding presence in volatility, building patience, not just in your trades, but in your character.
There's a story about one of the old masters of market psychology, Richard Wyckoff. Wyckoff wasn't just a trader, he was a student of human behavior. He believed markets weren't moved by price action, but by emotion, waves of fear and greed playing out again and again. His genius was patience. He called it accumulation. While the crowd chased spikes, Wyckoff quietly built positions in silence. He'd buy slowly, patiently, watching volume, studying behavior, never rushing, never forcing. He understood that time is the greatest tool of the intelligent trader, and that calm, true calm, isn't passive, it's strategic. There's a moment every trader faces, that internal crossroads where logic and emotion collide. One voice says, "Act now, don't miss out." The other whispers, "Wait, the market will come to you." That's the moment where traders are separated from gamblers. The storm doesn't destroy you because of volatility. It destroys you because you believe you have to react to it. But you don't. You never did. Let's be real. Markets today are louder than ever. Flashing numbers, social media opinions, the constant pressure to do something. It's easy to confuse movement with progress, but movement without awareness is just noise. Wyckoff used to say, successful traders always have patience. They wait for the market to come to them. That's a hard truth to accept in a world built on speed. But patience is what allows clarity to appear. And clarity is the edge no indicator can give you. Think back to your last emotional trade, the one that made you say, "I knew I shouldn't have done that." What really happened there? It wasn't about the chart. It was about your state of mind. The market spiked, your emotions fired, and you reacted. Not because you didn't know better, but because in that moment, you forgot who was in control. Here's the truth. You can't control what the market does, but you can control what you do when it moves. That's emotional mastery. That's the calm in the storm. Let's take another example. In 1998, during the collapse of long-term capital management, the markets were chaos. Even veteran traders were shaken. But one fund manager, Paul Tudor Jones, did something different. He didn't chase, he didn't panic, he waited. He once said, "Losers average losers." What he meant was, when chaos hits, doubling down on emotion only multiplies damage. Jones understood something deep, that your emotional capital is more precious than your financial capital. Once that's gone, you're trading on impulse, not insight. Calm isn't built by meditating once. It's built by surviving chaos enough times to realize you don't have to react to everything that moves. It's built through repetition, through awareness, through the practice of doing nothing until the right moment arrives. You see, every professional trader has a superpower. Some call it patience, some call it composure, but at its core, it's the ability to wait without losing confidence. Let me share something a trader once told me. He said, "When I started, I thought trading was about predicting. Now I know it's about waiting." He used to overtrade every move, scared to miss opportunity. But he realized the more he chased, the further he drifted from mastery. So he flipped the script. He started journaling his emotions during volatility. He wrote one simple question after every big move. What would the calm version of me have done? That question changed his entire trading identity. Because that's what calm does. It doesn't erase fear. It transforms it into focus. Let me ask you, what if your goal wasn't to control volatility, but to stay present within it? What if you trained your mind to watch chaos without letting it hijack your decisions? Because that's what the best do. They don't chase calm, they embody it. They've learned that every spike, every crash, every fake-out is just another test of their emotional architecture. And when that test comes, they don't panic, they observe. Here's a mental exercise to keep in your back pocket. Next time the market goes wild, don't rush to the screen. Sit back. Take one slow breath in and ask yourself, what story is the market trying to tell me right now? Don't answer immediately. Just observe. Because in that gap between reaction and response, you'll find your true edge. That's the silence Wyckoff lived in. That's the calm he built his fortune on. Every chart tells a story of emotion, fear and greed, desperation and hope. But beneath all that noise, there's rhythm, there's flow, and only those who are quiet enough inside can hear it. That's what calm gives you. It's not weakness, it's awareness sharpened into instinct. So, if you ever find yourself in the middle of a volatile day and your hands start to tremble over the mouse, remember this. The storm doesn't end when the market stabilizes. It ends when you do. Calm isn't waiting for better conditions. It's becoming the kind of trader who doesn't need them. Wyckoff taught patience through accumulation. But what he really taught was peace through understanding. He saw the market as human emotion, and he chose to master himself before he mastered price. That's the true path to emotional freedom, and it starts with stillness. So let me ask you one more question before we close. When chaos hits tomorrow, will you trade the chart or will you trade yourself? That answer decides everything, because calm is not the absence of fear, it's the presence of mastery. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper, beyond behavior, into the wiring of your own mind. We'll explore how thoughts become trades, how emotions hijack your judgment, and how to reprogram the very system behind your impulses. It's time to step inside the mind of the trader, to see how awareness turns into control, and how control turns into freedom. Because you can't change the market, but you can change the mind that meets it. That is Chapter 8, Reprogramming the Trader's Mind.
Let me ask you something. If your thoughts became visible on your trading chart, what would they look like? Would you see a calm, steady trend? Or would it be a wild, unpredictable storm of spikes and crashes? Because here's the truth. Every chart you've ever traded was really a mirror, not of the market, but of your mind. We love to think the market controls us, that it's the reason we feel fear, excitement, greed, or regret. But that's not how it works. The market doesn't create emotion. It reveals it. It exposes what's already inside you. Your impatience, your self-doubt, your hidden need to prove something. That's why some traders can lose a trade and stay calm, while others fall apart after a small dip. They're not reacting to the market. They're reacting to themselves. In this chapter, we're not talking about indicators or setups. We're talking about the machine behind it all, your mind. Because if you can reprogram the way you think, you can reprogram the way you trade. Let me show you how. Every thought creates a chemical reaction. Every reaction becomes a feeling, and every feeling, eventually, turns into a decision. That's the invisible chain between your thoughts and your trades. You think, I might miss out. Your brain fires off adrenaline. You feel anxious. And before you know it, you're clicking buy on a setup that doesn't even fit your plan. That's how emotion becomes execution, how thought becomes trade. Now, imagine what would happen if you could interrupt that chain right in the middle, before the click. That's what reprogramming is. Not changing who you are, but changing how you respond. Let's use an example. There's a story about a trader named Lucas, a sharp guy, years of experience. He knew every pattern, every risk rule, every strategy. But no matter how much he learned, he kept repeating the same mistakes. He'd build profits, then lose them all chasing one last setup, again and again. He used to call it bad luck, but it wasn't luck. It was conditioning. He wasn't following charts. He was following the emotional loops programmed inside his brain. That's when Lucas did something different. He started journaling. Not his trades, but his thoughts before the trades. He wrote things like, feeling bored, scared I'll miss out, want to prove I can recover. And that's when it clicked. His trades weren't about the market at all. They were about his emotions, the stories running on autopilot inside his mind. That's when he began the real work. Not on his strategy, but on his state of mind. Let's talk about that autopilot for a moment. Your brain runs 90% of its behavior on habits, repeated patterns wired from past experiences. Every time you felt fear, your brain remembered it. Every time you hesitated and lost money, your brain stored that pain. Every time you took a risky trade and it worked, your brain recorded the dopamine rush. And all those memories built a program. That program runs quietly in the background, guiding your reactions long before you realize it. That's why you feel an urge to enter early, to overtrade, to break rules, even when you know better. You're not weak, you're just running old code. And here's the good news. Code can be rewritten. Let's do a little mental exercise together. You don't have to close your eyes, just focus. Imagine your trading screen in front of you. The candles are moving fast. Your heart starts to speed up. You see an opportunity forming. That voice in your head says, "Don't miss it." Now, here's where the shift begins. Instead of reacting, take one slow breath. Watch your body. Feel the tension. And ask yourself, what's actually happening right now? Is this logic or is this emotion? In that single question, you interrupt the pattern. That moment, right there, is the space between reaction and awareness. The space where transformation begins. If you want to reprogram your trading mind, you need repetition, the same way your bad habits were built. Every time you choose awareness over impulse, you're rewiring your neural pathways. You're training your brain to pause, observe, and respond differently. It won't feel natural at first. In fact, it'll feel awkward, like learning to write with your opposite hand. But over time, that new pattern becomes the default. And that's when trading stops being emotional and starts being intentional. Let's go deeper. Most traders try to fight their emotions. They think, I have to stop feeling fear. I have to stop feeling greed. But fighting emotion only makes it stronger. Your brain doesn't delete emotions. It integrates them. So the goal isn't to remove fear, it's to understand it, to see it, to hear what it's trying to tell you. Because every emotion carries data. Fear might mean you're overleveraged. Greed might mean you're disconnected from your plan. Frustration might mean you're trading to fix a feeling, not to follow a process. Emotions aren't the enemy. Unawareness is. Here's what the great traders eventually learn. They don't suppress emotion. They use it as information. Paul Tudor Jones once said, "The secret to being successful is to be an independent thinker, emotionally independent." He wasn't saying don't feel. He was saying don't become what you feel. That's the difference between reactivity and awareness, between a trader who chases the market and a trader who lets the market come to them. Let's build a mental routine, a short system you can use to stay grounded during chaos. I call it the 3 R's. Recognize, reflect,
rewire. First, recognize what emotion you're feeling. Name it out loud. I'm anxious. I'm greedy. I'm uncertain. Next, reflect. Reflect on why it's happening. What triggered it? Was it the chart, the loss, or something else in your life? And finally, rewire. Replace the reaction with awareness. Instead of clicking, breathe. Instead of forcing, observe. Instead of escaping, stay present. Do this enough times, and you'll start seeing something magical. You'll become the calm observer in your own trading story. You see, the traders who rise above the chaos aren't built differently. They've just learned to manage the conversation in their head. Because trading isn't about numbers. It's about narratives. Every trader is living a story, one that started long before the first trade was ever placed. Your job isn't to fight that story. It's to rewrite it, one conscious decision at a time. So let me ask you something. Who do you want to be when the market moves? The impulsive version of you? The one chasing every flicker of fear and greed? Or the conscious version, who sees the same storm, feels the same emotion, but chooses to respond from strength instead of survival? Because the market doesn't care who you are, but your mind does. Every time you sit down to trade, you're programming your brain. Every thought you entertain becomes part of your trading language. So speak to yourself like a professional. When you lose, don't say, I messed up. Say, I'm learning what triggers me. When you win, don't say, I'm unstoppable. Say, I followed my process. That's how you rewire your trading identity, from emotional to intentional, from reactive to reflective. Reprogramming the trader's mind isn't about becoming robotic. It's about becoming aware. Because awareness gives you choice, and choice gives you power. When you can pause between emotion and action, you become untouchable. You become free. And that's what the next chapter is all about. You've learned to observe your thoughts, to rewire reactions, and to build awareness in
motion. Now we're going to go one step further into a place most traders never reach, a place where fear no longer controls you because you've learned to see through it, a state where emotion doesn't cloud your judgment, it sharpens it. That's what mastery feels like, not excitement, not confidence, just stillness. In the next chapter, we enter that state. Chapter 9, The Fearless State, where emotion becomes data and you become steady. Chapter 9, The Fearless State. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you took a trade and didn't feel anything? No rush, no panic, no second guessing. Just stillness, as if your mind and the market were breathing in sync. That state, right there, is what every trader chases, but few ever reach. It's called the fearless state. And no, it's not about becoming some emotionless robot. It's about transcending the fight with fear, about learning to see it without letting it move your hand. Most traders think fear is the enemy. They fight it, they suppress it, they try to man up and push through. But the truth? Fear is information. It's your system whispering that something is off, not in the chart, but in your mind. The market doesn't punish fear, it exposes it. Think about it. The times you've hesitated, closed too early, or held too long. It wasn't logic that failed you. It was emotion, disguised as logic. You told yourself, this looks weak, when really, you were just afraid to lose. Or you said, "I'll hold a little longer," when you were scared to miss out. Every bad trade hides an emotion behind it. And when you begin to see those emotions as signals, not enemies, you stop trading your fear and start trading your awareness. That's when the game changes. Look at the greats. Paul Tudor Jones, Stanley Druckenmiller, even Jesse Livermore in his final years, they all said the same thing in different words. The secret isn't prediction, it's presence. When you're present, you're not chasing, you're observing. You're no longer the pawn in the market's chaos. You're the observer of it. And observation is freedom. Here's what most traders never realize. Fear doesn't vanish with profits. You could have $1 million account and still panic when a candle turns red. Fear vanishes when you understand it, when you stop labeling it as bad. That spike of adrenaline before a trade? That's not fear. That's awareness sharpening. It's your system asking, are you aligned or are you reacting? There's a moment, right before you click buy, where the world goes quiet. That moment decides everything. If you act from fear, you trade your past. If you act from calm, you trade your plan. And here's the irony. The fearless trader isn't fearless because nothing scares him. He's fearless because he's willing to feel the fear and trade anyway, without letting it dictate his moves. So, how do you reach that level? Not by forcing yourself to be brave, but by building familiarity with discomfort. Next time the market spikes against you, don't rush to fix it. Sit in it. Feel that tightening in your chest, that voice that says, "Get out now." Don't obey it. Observe it. Watch how your mind tries to protect you from the unknown. You're training your nervous system to stay grounded in uncertainty. That's the true edge no chart can show you. Because here's what separates professionals from the crowd. Retail traders fear volatility. Pros expect it. They've built a relationship with chaos. They respect it, but they don't bow to it. You want to master fear? Start journaling it. Write down every time fear made you act and what story it told you. You'll begin to see patterns, almost like emotional footprints across your trades. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. That's when you gain leverage over your own mind. Let's be real for a second. Most traders never get here. They keep searching for better entries, cleaner setups, smarter indicators. But the ultimate indicator is you. Your body tells you more than your charts ever will. The tension, the urge, the restlessness, it's data. Data about your beliefs, your expectations, your relationship with risk. When you start treating emotion as part of your edge, not a flaw to fix, that's when trading stops being a battlefield and becomes a meditation. This is what I call the integration point, where discipline meets peace. You stop needing the market to behave. You stop needing outcomes to validate you. You just trade. And in that calm, detached state, something magical happens. You begin to see opportunity clearly. Your patience sharpens. Your confidence becomes quiet. Not loud, not forced, just steady. That's the fearless state. Calm, focused, free. Now, ask yourself this. What would your trading look like if fear wasn't something to fight, but something to listen to? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear your take. Because in the next chapter, we're going even deeper. If this chapter was about seeing fear differently, the next one is about rewiring the mind that creates it. We'll break down the hidden dialogue behind your decisions and how a single thought, unnoticed, can shape your entire trading reality. So stay with me. Up next, Chapter 10, the final trade, renewal, gratitude, and growth. The chapter where this journey comes full circle. And you'll learn that every bad trade was never a loss, but a mirror, showing you who you're becoming.
Let's take a deep breath together. We've walked through the traps, the emotions, the loops. We've seen fear, discipline, and awareness from angles most traders never pause to notice. But now, here we are, at the final trade. Not the last trade you'll ever take, but the one that never ends. Because this chapter isn't about the market, it's about you. Let me ask you something honest. After everything you've heard in this audiobook, do you still believe your success depends on the next trade? Or have you started to realize it depends on the trader behind it? The truth is, you were never trading the market. You were always trading your own reflection inside it. Every chart, every win, every loss, each was a mirror showing you a part of your psychology, your discipline, your fear, your hope, your patience. That's the real secret pattern behind every bad trade. It was never about being wrong on direction. It was about being misaligned inside. Once you understand that, your relationship with trading transforms. You stop needing the market to validate you. You stop using profits as proof of worth. You start showing up, grounded, consistent, calm. You trade not to escape emotion, but to express mastery. There's a story about Paul Tudor Jones that fits perfectly here. When he was young, he once blew up big, lost nearly everything, and he said something powerful. The whole world breaks everyone, and afterward, some are strong at the broken places. Trading does that to you. It breaks you down, your ego, your illusions, your need for control. But if you stay long enough, it rebuilds you stronger, with humility, patience, and grace. That's why this game isn't for everyone. It's not a shortcut to wealth. It's a lifelong mirror of your inner world. Think about it. You've learned how emotion hides behind trades. You've learned that discipline isn't control over the market, it's control over yourself. You've learned that calm isn't the absence of chaos, it's mastery within it. So what now? Now comes the part no one talks about, the quiet rebuild. You take these lessons and you start designing your routine around them. You journal, not your trades, but your thoughts. You breathe before every entry. You accept that losing trades aren't failures, they're feedback. And you build your emotional capital day by day. Because financial capital can vanish overnight, but emotional capital, that's what keeps you standing when everything else shakes. Let me share something personal. Every trader who's made it, from Jones to Druckenmiller, from Minervini to Wyckoff, they all learned the same timeless truth. Markets don't reward who's smartest. They reward who's steadfast. And steadfastness comes from inner peace. When the world is screaming, you stay centered. When price whips up and down, you keep your breathing steady. You no longer fight the storm. You move with it. That's what it means to trade from calm, not confidence. From presence, not prediction. And that's where mastery begins, when you stop measuring yourself by your results and start measuring yourself by your response. So if you take just one message from this audiobook, let it be this. Every bad trade hides a lesson, and every lesson hides your next evolution. The market doesn't test your strategy, it tests your mind. And the trader who understands that stops playing the game like everyone else. Because once your mind is steady, you don't chase setups, you attract them. You don't react to price, you flow with it. And that flow, that effortless awareness, that's where mastery lives. You see, trading isn't about beating the market. It's about understanding yourself deeply enough that the market no longer throws you off balance. You realize the ups and downs, the losses and wins, are not chaos. They're rhythm.
and you begin to dance with it. That's the fearless state, fully integrated. You no longer seek to predict or control. You simply participate. And that's when trading stops being a battle and becomes an art. So here's your call to action. Not to chase, not to grind harder, not to find another system, but to master the system inside you. If this audiobook has helped you slow down, reflect, or see your own patterns more clearly, then keep that momentum going. Join our journey on Psych Rich, because this is just the beginning. Here, we break down trading psychology like nowhere else. Real mindset resets, emotional mastery tools, and lessons from the greats that will reshape how you see the game. This isn't just about trading smarter, it's about living calmer, building wealth from the inside out. Because every chart will test your skill, but every moment will test your mind. And remember, the calm trader wins not because they control the market, but because they've learned to control themselves. The final trade isn't out there in the market. It's the one you make with yourself every single day. You are your greatest position. Protect it, grow it, and never stop refining it. Thank you for listening to The Secret Pattern Hidden Behind Every Bad Trade. If this journey has spoken to you, share it. Let's help more traders trade from peace, not panic, from awareness, not impulse. Because the next chapter of your growth begins within.